so Messi, right? Everybody know Messi, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
They him and his group, they tried a few times to get some of our properties, and they weren't available. And I told him, I told the guy who represent Messi, I told him, listen, I'll cancel, like a week booking just for him coming for one day, right? I don't, because it's worth it. But I told him, in return, if I cancel now a week, because it's still like a lot of money, I mean, I want him to kind of like take a picture of something. But he's
Right.
like,
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.
All right. Welcome back to another episode of the Business After Hours podcast. Here with my co-host Jared and our guest Alon. How are you guys doing today?
awesome. Thank you
Great.
guys. Very nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Good to
Yeah,
meet
thanks
you.
for coming on.
Anytime.
So you're in sunny Florida. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about your background and kind of what brings you here today?
I am, even though it's raining today. So that's Florida for you. I moved here 20 years ago from Israel. I went to school here. I studied economics, and I started right after to do property management. I managed about 350 plus units. And then from here, I actually moved to LA. I had some coffee shops, and I moved back to do real estate in Florida. And I used to do a lot of, also, again, I went back to do property management, but I also did construction, renovation, represented also the selling and buying side and renting. And then I got into the vacation rental market, which is what I'm doing the last 6 7 years.
Awesome. How many properties do you yourself own?
So we're partnering we're buying in the last few years in a way of syndication. So basically, in each property, we put some money into it, and we have overall over 100 properties.
Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, how
What it,
how how do you feel about like the big push that's being pushed with not allowing companies to be investors in single family homes anymore?
Not to allow what? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Corporations to be involved in single family homes.
In Florida, you can still do it.
No, it's a legislation that they're trying to pass, and
Oh, you're saying like if it's gonna go through? Honestly, with the government, the governor here, DeSantis, every day I hear some different stories. Right now, he's also trying to eliminate property tax, and he's going to lower insurance, which got skyrocket high in the last few years. So there are a lot of things that are, you know, maybe going to change. But until
right,
then, we're already like on a regular basis trying to adjust. There's so many things that change in the last few years. I mean, Airbnb itself skyrocketed in the last years, and then it became to kind of like a peak during the Corona. After that, it was still strong, and then there was a big decline, and a lot of people that thought it's like easy money, they got out of the market, and we are still strong into it. And we're adjusting every day to what's going on. So if this is gonna happen, which I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but I'm pretty sure we'll still be able to buy under LLC, for investment. I don't really think it's going to change anytime soon.
now, who is your ideal client? Are you looking for hotels to partner with? Or are you actually looking at filling up those hotels, or both?
So we also have hotels. In the last few years, it's very, very hard to find new hotels to buy. The prices just don't make sense. When we start purchasing most of our portfolio, it was single families. It was mostly in Hollywood, Hollywood East. So if you're in Florida, there is like the highway, which is 95, and then east of it there is US 1, which is kind of like the long road that separate between the good and the bad. To keep it in nice words. So we were east of that, which was a really good area. It's not like Miami, but it's still pretty good, and the prices there definitely made sense for us, and we were doing very well. You're talking about anywhere from 12 to 17% return cap rates. And we focus mainly on that. Now, a lot of people came after us. They also start purchasing, and also the Airbnb had some sort of decline. So we had to look for what's next to do. And the next thing for us was to buy all inclusive, kind of like resort style homes, which are basically on acre lots. It's like 4 or 5 thousand square foot homes, and we add amenities to it. And the goal was to give the best service for people that they can just stay in the house and enjoy it. So it can be big families, it can be also like bachelorette parties and retreats, etc. And we found that this model works very, very well for us. And if you're looking at hotels, sometimes you're looking at the smaller hotels. It can be anywhere from 2 million to, let's say, 6 million, something like that. When you're looking into one house, it's about $2 million. So for
Yeah.
us, it was better to invest in one house, 2 million, that we know it's working well, versus a hotel that, when you're buying a hotel, most of the hotels, they come as a hotel structure, so you still need to convert it to Airbnb, which is, it's similar, but it's a different style of management and the setup and everything. So we are not very strong into the hotels. We do have a few, but we prefer single families.
Okay. Now, are you finding your competitors really Airbnb and VRBO? Is that your
No,
two
no, they're
competitors?
not our. No, we're using them to advertise. I mean, there's no really a competition there. We also have, and I shared with you, we have our own website. So a lot of the repeating clients, they come directly to us. Also, some people want, they might have some questions online, and then they come to us to book it. But it's not really a competition. We're probably on 6, 7 different platforms, and we're trying to also advertise to many different platforms as possible.
Yeah. And how do you navigate all these quick, sudden changes in real estate?
Oof,
Because didn't like New York
tough.
City, didn't they ban like short term rentals? So
Yeah,
you can't really go to New York City now. Like, how do you navigate all this? It just changes so quickly.
it is. And you always learn and grow as it comes, and your answers are changing. If you ask me probably 2 years ago, it will be a different response. The law here, so DeSantis, who is the governor, it doesn't he's very for vacations and to bring more money into Florida and tourism. So the rules here are for Airbnb. They cannot bend it. They cannot say you cannot do Airbnb. What they can say is that each city will have its own regulations. So they will not cancel it completely, but they can tell you all of the sudden, you cannot have more than 6 guests in a house, or you cannot have, I don't know, more than 3 cars. They can give like different, rules that they wish. And even, I'll give you an example. In Hollywood, when we bought the houses, um, they can come to you 6 years after you already have and operate and have license for this. So every year you need to renew your license. So let's say for 6 years you renew your license, and then they can come to you all of the sudden. Oh, we changed the way we're looking into licensing. Now it's a separate third party company. What are your where are your permits from 7 years when you bought it, like 7 years ago? And we're like, that's how we bought it. We don't have permits. I
Right.
mean, and I'm saying, when you're really like, don't have it, like you didn't do anything. Sometimes you do stuff without permit, I get it, but I'm talking about like houses you bought as is, and you just put like furniture, maybe did paint, stuff like that,
Mm.
and now they're asking you to pull permits for, so they are trying to fight it. For example, what we're doing now is to buy more properties in unincorporated areas, so you have much more peace of mind. And that really, we're really trying to eliminate the changes. And some of the areas that they've done changes, sometimes we're still like taking the risk and advertise it as is, as it really is. And sometimes you get fines, but you need to work around it, and know if it's worth the fines or not. We're obviously trying not to buy in the new areas that it can happen. Most of the unincorporated areas, you're good to go.
Now, what's been like the craziest event you've had doing this rental
What do you mean by crazy event?
Like like guests destroying the property,
Okay.
or cops
Um,
got called. Something. I mean, what's some crazy things?
I'll give you a funny one because I just talked about it the other day. One of the properties we have, the owner, it's a really nice newer construction home, and the owner is a rabbi. And I'm saying it because he doesn't live here. He's from England, and every time he comes to Florida, he stay in the house. So most of the times, the house is up for rent, but sometimes he's here, and he stays there for 2 3 weeks. So happens to be he was here in his house, and a lady called me, which I don't know how she got my number because I'm not on the listings. And she's calling me and she's like freaking out, and she's like, "You guys are doing parties for underage girls. What's going on? And you guys are crazy, and I'm gonna sue you and stuff." And I'm like, "Okay, first of all, what property are you talking about? Because I have no idea what you're
Yeah.
talking about." Um, and by the way, side note, we're very against parties. We don't allow any parties in our properties, and we have way to make sure it's really staying like that. So anyway, she's giving me the address, and I was happy because happened to be the rabbi's in the house, and I know that the rabbi, first of all, the party was she called me Friday, and the party is like on Saturday as a rabbi, they don't use electricity, like there is no way there is a party on a Saturday, like. So she sent me the address. I told her, okay, the owner is in the house, there is no way he's the one doing a party. And then she sent me a flyer, and in the flyer you see like girls in bikini in a pool and the address, and they're advertising a huge party in this house. And she told me that her daughter and all her girlfriends already paid for this party. So I told her, well, you know I don't know, talk to her because I have no clue what the party is. So we actually called police to stay outside the house to make sure that there's no party. I guess the daughter, probably called everybody, told her about what's going on, and nobody showed up. But we were freaking out for a bit because we didn't want, like, now young people to start knocking on his door on Saturday and say
Right.
they're coming to a party, and he doesn't know what's going on. So those are things. We've had another huge house that we have. It's 5,000 square foot on an acre. We have volleyball court, basketball, soccer. It's a huge property, very very nice. And an influencer rented this house, and before he got there, apparently he also advertised a free party for everybody, like hundreds of people. And the advertisement, so there is a Facebook community page for this for the community. So someone saw that advertisement, he put it on the community, all the neighbors start freaking out, and all of them know us, so they reached out to us and say what's going on. So we had to cancel him, and we had to make sure that nobody's. So you do have stuff like that, but again, we're
Sure.
working very hard to make sure that those things don't happen, and so far it didn't happen. um Things that are like breaking and stuff like that doesn't happen so often. We don't get like people stealing our TVs and stuff like that. We do have like 24/7 security. We actually started the security during COVID. So COVID, you could not rent your property and in Florida unless you have security. So we actually brought security. I know, weird. So we actually brought security to be around the clock to go between the properties, and we saw the benefits in it. It was amazing because now every time that all of the sudden you have like a few more cars in the parking lot, right away you can send someone and his license and everything. So we saw the benefits, and this is something that worked pretty good. I had, for myself, I made an event in one of the houses, and it was a private event, so the workers didn't really know about it, um, besides my partners. And then all of a sudden, the camera, they saw that there are a lot of cars, so they sent the security guy, and he came ready, with the weapon. The weapon wasn't outside, but he was ready, And he went inside and he's like, "Who is here?" And then I'm like getting out of the kitchen. I'm like, "What's going on?" So he's like, "Oh my God, it's
Whoops.
you." So he didn't know about it, but it's good. That's how you check them. You know that they're
Yeah,
working.
it's good. Yeah.
But that's like most of the stuff. We've had some celebrities. I'm sure you guys know about the Island Boys, which are kind of known on the
Unfortunately,
yeah,
yeah.
unfortunately.
I think one of them just got arrested too.
So they actually stayed in one of my properties, and I didn't even know because I don't really know who's staying in the properties. I don't check
Mm.
it. The guy who did the railing for me in the house, so they put a post, like a video, that they're in the house partying and stuff, and the guy sent me a message, and he's like, "Dude, they're in your house. That's my railing." um, so I looked at it, and then I'm like, back then I was like, because again, I don't really know who's staying where. So I talked to the management company, and I told them, hey, they're staying in our property. Like, they're not the greatest, influencers I want to promote stuff for us, but still they have, like, a lot of followers. So maybe they should advertise, our properties or something like that. So the management company told me that actually they've been staying in a lot of our different properties, and every time we call the cops on them.
Oh,
uh,
geez.
Whoops.
so so it's like they told us definitely not to advertise us.
Mm.
We've had some really famous football players, soccer players. Sometimes the people make a lot of money, so sometimes, let's say, they use very loud music, and the neighbors complain, and they don't care about fines and stuff like that, so they just keep it like that. But it doesn't happen very often. It's not.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
So what are there? I'm sure that like we know the answer to this, but I'll let you just say it. What is there easier markets to be in compared to other markets?
So in East Hollywood right now, you cannot buy anything that will work. There is no way. In the suburbs of Florida, we just bought a property like 3 months ago, for example, but it's very, very hard to find. So you could still buy it, but I can tell you, if people don't have like the experience to buy a $2 million property for doing Airbnb, the expenses are brutal. Like, every month, if the house not making money, you're spending about $15,000 regardless. So you really need to know your stuff, and I don't think anybody can do it. It's not easy to buy a house that is already super nice and then add a quarter million for courts and furniture and stuff like that. It's a lot of money. um but those are still markets that we can find. We did go all the way up north to Tampa, so Tampa for us is still working very well. Some properties you can have like 15-minute drive between properties, very similar, and one will do amazing and the other property will not do as well. So you definitely need a lot of experience to have the different properties to know where to grow. So if you're a company that has, let's say, 100 properties, and one property is making 14%, one property is making 8, one is making 7. If at the end you're averaging like 10%, you're good. But if you're just buying this one property, it's definitely a risk, because it's going to be very hard for you to know 100% if it's going to work or not.
Mhm.
Um, but that's pretty much the way we're still looking at it. Miami, I wish we could buy. You cannot do in Miami at all.
Not at all.
No. Well, you could in very specific areas, but overall not the main areas, let's say. And the areas that you can do, it's very hard to find, like stuff that are available, that so you can, but it's very hard. So we're not in Miami, for example. Now,
Gotcha.
you do have, for example, so Messi, right? Everybody know Messi, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Him and his group, they tried a few times to get some of our properties, and they weren't available. And I told him, I told the guy who represent Messi, I told him, listen, I'll cancel, like a week booking just for him coming for one day, right? I don't, because it's worth it. But I told him, in return, if I cancel now a week, because it's still like a lot of money, I mean, I want him to kind of like take a picture of something, but he's
Right.
like, he's gonna pay, but he's not gonna do it.
Oh, he won't do
uh,
that, huh?
yeah, no, they're not gonna. I mean, when you have like over 30 million, I don't know how many he has. Kunaguero, one of his best friends, he stayed with our properties. One of our property has like over 30 million followers on Instagram only, and I met him personally. So when he came, so I asked him, can you, give us some shout out or something? And he's like, his English is not as great. So he asked his girlfriend back at the time. I think now they're married. And she translated, and then he's like, "Oh no, no, I'll pay. It's okay."
It
um,
sounds like you kind of deal with the same kind of clientele from being on the higher end of the spectrum for real estate wise compared to the lower end. You got to still deal with parties and whatnot. So is it worth the risk of having the higher end properties compared to the like middle end property?
so when we started, it was the middle, market, the middle market, and it worked great. The problem is that the prices just soared, and you cannot. So I'll give you an example. Back in the days, 4 or 5 years ago, you could buy a house in East Hollywood. Let's say Dania Beach is also very close to it, between 400,000 to 650. That was a very reasonable uh, price to buy a house with a pool, 4 bedrooms, and the numbers worked. They worked very well. And then this area became very saturated, so your income is decreasing regardless.
Mm.
And the house that you could buy between 400 to 650 is now 650 to 900,000. So it just, there is no way to make money in that niche now. So I wish we could. I mean, and
Yeah.
I can tell you that a lot of people are uneducated. I have houses that I'm selling in those areas because we want to get out. The houses that are not working as well, and after years we have a great appreciation, so we want to just make the profit. And I get a lot, like 90% of the people who come to the house are people who want to do Airbnb. So to me, it's like, you want to buy it at this price, you're gonna lose money. And they're like, no, we know what we're doing. I'm like, okay, I'm giving you like a friendly advice. Obviously, if you want to buy it. I mean, I want to sell. Um, so I think that's kind of like the problem with this price range. And I wish we could. I mean, I've had so many potential investors who wanted to buy for 400, 500, and I told them there's nothing. And it's a shame, but
What
what can
would
I
be some advice that you'd give somebody that wants to get into the Airbnb space?
So a few things. If someone, let's say, already has a house in mind, and he wants to use it for Airbnb, I would suggest to start with a management company. Even though it's like 20%, you're going to learn so much from the process. And of course you need to be on top of them, but you need to really learn the process, the way of what channels to advertise, how to connect all the channels, what backup website to use for all the P&L, and with the pictures, and the all the reviews, how to make sure you get like top reviews. And then basically there are different parts. It's a lot of moving parts that needs to come basically into one package. So I will suggest someone to at least use it for the beginning, to learn all the ins and out of the business. But before that, if you're just looking at a house, use a realtor, or use a company that can tell you kind of like the projected income. It's going to be very hard to know. If I'm talking about someone with zero experience, right?
Right.
It's going to be very hard to know. People are way off with what the expenses are, and stuff like that. I get to a lot of our properties that we're selling, realtors that come with people that the realtors themselves don't have the knowledge. And
Mm.
they're trying to make a sale, so they see a nice house and they're like, oh, that's great. But use someone who's knowledgeable. And then and that's a very important thing, what I'm going to say now. So we always try to maximize the amount of bedrooms. The more
Okay.
bedrooms, the more money you're making. That is still true, but the very important thing is to also think about the appreciation and the resale. So what is happening is that sometimes, let's say you go to a very nice house, high ceilings, 4,000 square foot, and it has 5 bedrooms, and you're like, well, I want to make it 7, and you're finding like one place that you can do some drywall, and you're like, okay. And then the house happens to have a master closet that is huge. I'm talking about like, more than like 12 by 12, something like that. It's not huge, but it's like a bedroom size.
Right.
So you can make okay, you're like, well, when people are coming for Airbnb, they don't really need closet. I mean, they need like a small closet, but they don't need like you know a master closet. So
Right.
you can make another bedroom. You're gonna make more income. The problem is when you're selling, most people who want to buy a house don't really need 7 bedrooms. The amount of people that need 7 bedrooms is like almost zero, and it's not worth to have a 7 bedroom house just for that very low percentage. And when you're selling, people who want to pay top dollars, which is, let's say 2 million or something like that on a property, they're going to want to have master closet, master shower, all those big stuff. And you need to take it into consideration, because you're at the beginning, you're like, oh my God, I utilize all the space, I have so many bedrooms, I can rent everything out. But when you're bringing it back on the market, if you're not going to put the money back to convert it, it's going to be very, very hard sell. And that's just one example. There are a lot of examples. Where to put the washer and dryer, stuff like that. So I would suggest for someone who's also like thinking about doing it, to also think about the resale value, super important. And regarding furniture, so don't buy the cheapest kinds. I've had so many new clients that just wanted to, they're like, oh, we can put everything for like 15,000, stuff like that from IKEA or whatever it is.
Right.
And those things break. And, when they break, and then, you need keep in mind, sometimes you have double booking. So check out at 11 a.m., sorry, and check in at 4 p.m. In between, you have to make sure the cleaners are coming. When the cleaners are coming, they will tell you, oh, this table is broken, this chair is broken, this, whatever is broken. You need to make sure within like an hour window to get that piece again to the house new. So you need to make sure that you know where you're buying your stuff from, that you can buy a quantity of them, to make sure that um, you cannot do it as a side hustle. It's not going to work.
Gotcha.
You really need to be on top of your game if you want to do it. And it's very possible. I mean, there is still money into it. I mean, you keep in mind that we're taking 20% off. So some people do it themselves. They're making that 20% to themselves. So there, some houses that might not work for an investors who are like living outside the country or whatever. It might work for other people.
Right.
They still need to know what to do.
Well, as we wrap up here, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your listings and why anybody should choose your listings?
So our listings are very unique. Like I said, they're very good for a retreat. So a lot of companies who want to bring their, top guns and all the CEOs, management stage and everything, if they want to come to the house, it's very great, kind of like to reset yourself and explore and do the brainstorming. People do like a yoga retreat, stuff like that. Other than that, like I mentioned at the beginning, bachelor parties and big families who want to just do like the once a year trip, that all their families come from different areas and just stay in the house and have fun between all the amenities that we have. And I'll be very happy to show like specific properties that like mind blowing, but for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on. Jared, did you want to
Absolutely.
add anything?
No, just thanks again for coming on. It was a pleasure having you. Real insightful information that you gave. So appreciate that.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we'll have your link down below so that anybody wants to check out your properties or possibly book one, hopefully, it'll be down below so that you can click on them and check out all his properties and hopefully take yourself on vacation to Florida and one of his properties.
Awesome. Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thanks.
All right.
Welcome to the Business After Hours, where the ties loosen, the suit relax, and we talk business without the boardroom. Grab your favorite drink, kick back, and let's dive into the world of business after hours.